Hi guys, welcome to today's training. Today we're going to talk about how we get paid and group volume as well as ranking. So on the right hand side you will see that you have me and I have 30 people, so I am a senior associate. I have 15 on my first line, which is a uni level. In some companies you are restricted as to how many you can have, but with True Vision we're allowed to have as many as we like on our top line. And underneath I have 15 as well. Having a look at George down the bottom, he's done it different. He has 5 on his top line, and then he has 10 and 10 on his following lines, and then 5 on his fourth line, I think it is. 1, 2, 3, fourth line down the bottom. So it doesn't matter how your organisation is set up to start with, because at the end of the day we are both, as you can see, senior associates, subject to everybody doing what they need to do. What does happen and what comes into play later is when you are talking about group volume and ranking, depending on how you are set up as to how you get paid. So let's have a look over here. Once you start, you'll be an associate with 1 underneath you. When you become a managing associate, you have 2 that you have personally enrolled, and then 3 coming from either you or someone else in your downline, so you have 5. And in that case, you get paid on 3 lines down. So let's have a look at George, because he has 3 lines. So as a managing associate, he would be paid on these 5 people, then these 10 and these 10. So he'd be paid on these lines here. When he reaches senior associate, which is 30 in his lines, 30 in his downline, he'll be paid on 4 lines down. So he'll be paid on all of these people here. In my case, even if I hit senior, I will be paid on 4 lines. However, I only have 2 lines. Now this is when it starts to come into play. So for instance, my first 2 lines are at 7%. George has 2 lines at 7% and 2 at 6%. So already when you look at money and pay, I'm actually a percent higher in every single person in my lines than he is, because he's actually got 15 people at 6%, whereas I have 15 people at 7% in my second line. So there's one thing you need to consider. The second thing is group volume. You'll hear people talk about group volume, and people will be saying what used to be in the back office, and it's not. Group volume is very, very important, and up until probably 2 or 3 days ago, I actually still wasn't sure how it worked. But this is how it works. Group volume is pretty much what your downline order in PV. It's probably the easiest way. So in my case, all of my 15 people, let's keep it simple, they all order the month and they order a control kit each. Wouldn't that be nice? And their PV is 100 PV. I will, at the end of the month, have a group volume of 3,000 PV. Now George will have the same. He will also have a group volume of 3,000 PV if all of his downline, all of these people, order 100 PV. He will also have it. So at the end of the month, we've both got 3,000 PV. The difference is I will be paid on 2 of my lines at 7%, and he will be paid on 2 at 7 and 2 at 6. So already I'm going to earn more than he is, although we are both senior associates. Now let's look at what happens if at the end of the month we don't hit senior and we only hit managing because one of our customers is inactive. You can see we've just picked one here and one here. So that means I get to the end of the month and we both have 29. What's going to happen? What happens is you then get paid on managing associate level, which is this one here. Now if you look at it, we're only going to get paid 3 lines down. So in my case, I will be paid for all of my first line at 7%, all of my second line at 7%. But let's look at George. George is going to be paid on his first line at 7%, his second line at 7%, and his third line at 6%, and that's where it stops. He loses these last 5 people because he didn't hit senior. So most people will be freaking out by now, but let's put it in monetary terms. At the end of the day, if he doesn't hit senior that month, he is only losing approximately $18. because if those 5 people order 77 PV and you times it by this and times it however they work it out, it works out about $18. So all that stress because you didn't hit the rank of senior doesn't equate to monetary terms. I hope that's a bit clearer for everybody. It's nice to rank, don't get me wrong, the higher you get, the more levels you go down. But you can also lose because if you don't hit that rank, then it starts to only pay so many levels. This brings into play group volume. Now, I know people who are a 3-star and they are earning more money than a 4 or 5-star director. How can that be, you say? The reason being is their downline and their group volume is huge. Not only that, it's the way they have built their teams. Now, I always build as far as I can go wide, and I am going down because I have legs going down. But for every one that my business associates put on, I also add one on. In this compensation plan, you are better off going as wide as you can rather than going straight down like George has done. If you go as wide as you can, for instance, like we are, what happens is your group volume. So let's look in group volume terms. So let's say we don't hit senior again, we only hit managing, we're going to get paid 3 lines down. My group volume, again, 100 PV, I will still get paid on 3,000 PV for the month. However, George can't. Because he's only going to get paid on 3 lines, he will actually lose this group volume here and he will only get paid 2,500 PV at the end of the month. So at the moment, we're only talking small figures, but it still adds up to money. So my advice is be top heavy. Don't be bottom heavy. Don't be an upside down so your boat tips upside down, so your hole's at the top. You need to be top heavy. Stack it at the top, and then eventually those people will run the legs out for you because you're going to need to go wide the higher that you get. You need to have as many people that you can on your top line that will eventually go down and break away into different legs for you. So group volume is very important. So this is also why sometimes we push control kits or we push this, because the higher your group volume is, the more you're going to get paid. The higher it is at the top, or the more stacked it is at the top, it cushions you if you have a bad month and you don't hit rank, so you can still get paid. So for instance, me and George had a bad month. I still get my group volume at the top here, whereas he's actually losing because he didn't hit and he's gone down and not as far as wide. I mean, if you get technical and go all the way down and we have to be paid as an associate, then he will only get paid 500 PV and I would get paid 1,500 PV. That's an outweigh scenario because it doesn't work like that, but just to show you kind of what PV stands for. So it's very important to have that PV, probably more so than ranking in my case, because as I said, for money each month, you're only losing $18 or around about that if you missed out on that jump to senior. I hope that helps everybody. If you have any questions, please let me know.